The Graphic Histories Podcast.
I got bit by a radioactive bug. I tried an experimental drug. Went up for a stroll on a gamma testing range. I found an enchanted hurricane. I made a serum that made me small. I modified the serum so it would make me tall. Radioactive isotope in my eyes. Dying alien helped me accessorize. I gained the proportion and strength of a spider. Now I'm invincible and I can fly. I lost my sight, my other senses were heightened. I'm gonna put on my pajamas and go fight crime.
Hey there and welcome to the Graphic Histories Podcast. My name is André, your podcast host. Big thanks to Uka the Mock for our theme song, Superpowers. And big thanks to you, gentle listener, for tuning in once again to another action-packed, fun-filled show. Today's episode I talk with Jeff Haas, host of Traversing the Stars, another podcast very similar to mine in which he speaks with comic industry people about their creations, their comics, their work. And this episode is very inside baseball, as I like to call it, as we get into some lengthy discussions about what it's like to do what we do. The pitfalls, the hazards, the successes, the cheers, the highs, the lows, the whole thing. We get in behind the scenes and give you some insight into what doing a show like this is like. Jeff has been doing it for a while. He's in the trenches with me, and it's nice to meet a fellow traveler on this interview highway. And it was a great chat, great conversation. He's had a lot of careers, been all over, and has a lot of insight into a lot of cool stuff, and I thoroughly enjoy chatting with him. So, also great contact to have. He's already sent me a few emails about some potential guests we could have on this show someday, and hopefully those pan out because there's some pretty big doozies in there. Certainly ones I would absolutely love to chat with. So, big thanks to Jeff for being on the show, being very free with his time, and having a great conversation, as I muchly appreciate it. By the time you're listening to this, I will have already seen Deadpool versus Wolverine, or not versus, just Deadpool and Wolverine, and I will save my comments on it, I guess, for the next episode, because I have yet to see it in the time of which I'm recording this, but this time it will have come out, and I know it will have been probably a smash hit. I know a lot of people are looking very forward to it, myself included. It looks like a ton of fun, and it looks like it's going to kind of set up some things for the future of the Marvel Universe, and when it comes to films and television, I'm excited to see what that's going to be. Mostly, I just, like, for the other podcasts I do, our sister show, X-Rated, the X-Men Anime Review Show, we recently rewatched Deadpool 1 and 2, and they're great films. They're highly rated in my book because they know what they are, they have a lot of fun, they have a lot of heart. They certainly honor their source material and poke fun of it as well, but never in a horribly mean-spirited way, just the right amount. They tread an interesting line, and they do really good with it. And because of that, I feel like now being able to rope in, the multiverse and all the fun stuff they can have with that, I think it's going to be a blast. So very excited to see what that's going to look like and chat about here on the show. But I'm getting ready to kind of go on a mini vacation, so I'm not going to talk your ear off as I sometimes do in these little intros. I'm just going to say, listen into this episode with Jeff Haas. It's a great chat, great talk, and really fun conversation. So here we are, my conversation with host of Traversing the Stars, Jeff Haas.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Very well.
Excellent. Coming from space, I see.
Yeah, my whole Traversing the Stars background.
Oh, that's all good. I like it.
Thank you.
Very nice. I think this might be a record for me. This might be the first time I talk to someone that kind of does what I do, which is interesting. I was like, it'd be cool. It'd be fun to chat with someone that also sort of interviews other comic people and is into that world as well.
Well, like I said, I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
Awesome. So where are you calling in from?
Rhode Island.
Ah, nice. Seems like the last little bout of people I've had in the show have been from the East Coast there, the States.
I know you've done a lot of my clients for me, and I greatly appreciate that. So.
Oh, hey, no, well, I still.
Thank you so much.
Anytime you got people I'm sure you understand that when doing this sort of thing, sometimes, acquisition of a guest sometimes can be a little difficult. Not difficult always, but in a way that it's nicer when someone sends you stuff. But I'm now at the level that I'm getting people messaging me, which is really nice because sometimes it's like, oh, great. Assuming they're not some crazy person, which I haven't run into yet. But everybody so far has been really nice and just trying to promote their books or have a nice conversation. So it's always nice.
Well, I should have 3 or 4 new clients coming in within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So you're gonna hear from me probably a little too often within the
No,
next week. So
I'm happy about that. Super happy. So are you from Rhode
yeah.
Island originally? I'm in Nova Scotia, so I'm just up the coast from you a little ways.
Oh, okay. Time difference or no?
An hour, yeah.
It's an hour ahead of behind.
I'm an hour ahead of you.
Okay.
So I'm on Atlantic time, and you guys are Eastern. So it's only an hour. Well, sometimes it makes things interesting when you're talking to people from like the West Coast, where it's like a 4 hour difference, and they're like, I can meet at like 8 o'clock, and I'm like, like,
Oh,
sure,
Well, I've interviewed a couple of people from Australia.
Oh yeah, I did
And,
one too.
Yeah, and the dynamics trying to figure out the scheduling for that. I know I've messed up at least more than once, being because it's like 12 hours or ahead or something or behind, and you had to figure out like the math and all that. I was just 14 hours ahead. I was like, this is a little too stressful for me.
Especially for like the next day. Like I think I talked to him in his morning, and it was like really late my night, or not really late, but like late enough. So it was like the crack of dawn for him, and it was like midnight for me. Like it wasn't quite. I mean, I think you're right. It is 14 hours, but it was.
This one person, I think I went to bed, woke up for 1 in the morning to do the interview because that's when he needed to. I was like, all right, 1 in the morning, I'm going to wake up and do the interview.
It'd be awesome if you just leaned into it like you're wearing like an old timey nightcap and you got the little, like with a candle and like an Ebenezer Scrooge kind of looking outfit, just.
Well, the guest was very much awake, and he's like, "Yeah, blah. I'm just like half dead." I'm like, I'm like, and I was about to say goodbye. I remember, like, I was about to say goodbye, and he's like, "I got more time." I was like, "I know." I'm done.
He's like, and then I killed 6 people, and you're like, yeah, no, that's good. Very interesting. So you from Rhode Island originally?
Well, I was born in Baltimore. Also live in Arizona and South Carolina, and now I'm back in Rhode Island.
Military family? It's a lot of moving.
Jobs. I worked. Long story short, I was born in Baltimore. They moved to Rhode Island to be with my parents' parents. I moved to Arizona to work with chimpanzees.
Whoa, okay. Let's go back to that. That's exciting.
Yeah, before I was a teacher, I was a primatologist. So I studied primates for 5 years. I did Costa Rica. Arizona was chimps, and then South Carolina was rhesus macaques on an island.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I have a deep fascination with primates. Just because like the connection, how close they are to humans, but also like the animal kingdom and the weird sort of mismatch of the in-between. So what was your interest in that? Like you just grew up loving monkeys or primates in general?
Well, in college, being into college, I was going to be a paleontologist.
Okay.
And then I realized no one hires paleontologists. And there's only like 3 colleges in the country that had it, and apparently I'm not smart enough for Duke. So I was like, well, I'm going to do anthropology. And then I found that a subset is primatology. And I got sucked into it, and I was like, all right, it sounds exotic. I had some vision of like studying chimps in Africa, and I was like, this is gonna be so exotic and so much fun, and so I decided to do it, and then I did it, and it turned out that the reality isn't as exciting as it sounds.
Well, no, I mean they've been studying them for how long now, right? Like what is left to learn, I guess. Like I suppose social interactions and all that sort of stuff. I feel like we probably have most of that mapped out, I would assume. I mean, as much as you can, but I guess like anything, you never stop learning.
I mean, there's a lot in there. I ended up because to do that kind of research, you had to kind of be a doctor in primatology, and I'd only made it up to a bachelor. I didn't decide to go for my master's. So those jobs tended to be either working at a sanctuary or biomedical research. And I was damned if I was going to do biomedical research.
Oh God, no, that's horrifying.
So it came out to working at a sanctuary. Unfortunately, those jobs back in the day, this was going back to 2022, 2023, paid like $10 an hour.
Really?
Which I couldn't live on. And I was like, well, biomedical research is where the money is, but I'm not doing that. And I thought to myself, am I passionate enough to suffer my entire life, financially to do this? I was like, I felt like I did it. I was, it was nice to explore, but I couldn't dedicate my life to poverty to that. So I became a teacher, which wasn't that much better.
Well, did you have any moments with the primates where you're like they're not that far from us, like some kind of interaction or some kind of moment where you're like this this thing, like you see the humanity in them, I guess. I assume you do that
Um,
every day, but so I just wonder if there's anything that was, you
yeah.
know,
If you have time for a quick story.
we have lots of time, dude.
All right.
I got all the time in the world. It's not 1 o'clock there. I'm kidding.
Um, all right, so I assume if you care about primates, you probably know who Jane Goodall is.
Of course, yeah.
All right.
She went
Um,
recently. She not too long ago was here in Nova Scotia doing a talk somewhere, and I was really disappointed I couldn't go see her because I would have liked
aw,
to. Would have been
I
awesome.
mean,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
have her graphic novel based on her and all that sort of stuff too. I would have brought.
she she's absolutely fascinating, and
Yeah.
she had a bunch of chimps that she was under her care. I guess like her kind of sanctuary.
Hmm.
And one of the chimps was a chimp named Kobe. All right, this is this actually, yeah. So it was named Kobe. Well, not because of Kobe Bryant, but because of it was a Native American name apparently
Hmm.
from back in the day. And the chimp used to get beat up all the time by the other chimps, absolutely beaten up,
Hmm.
to the point where Jane Goodall decided she couldn't take care of that chimp anymore. It was too much danger. So she gave the chimp to the sanctuary where I started to work at. All right,
Hmm.
this is before my time there, but this is maybe in the 80s. I started working there in the early 2000s. But the
Hmm.
chimp lived a long time, so the chimp was there. So this is so think about how people looked in the 70s and 80s, right?
Yeah.
The guy who ran the sanctuary, I guess the Kobe really liked him.
Hmm.
Hated chimps, loved him. So what it did, which was either healthy or not healthy, maybe not healthy,
Hmm.
tore off all his hair, except for the
Oh.
top of his head and his sideburns, which matches the haircut of the man.
Oh my God.
But he took it off his arms, and he took it off his stomach because humans don't have hair on their
Yeah.
stomach and arms. So
Wow.
ripped off all his hair, stomach and arms, but kept the sideburns on his head and the hair over it,
Oh
matching
my
the human that was caring for him.
God.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
yeah. So if you ever want to know, do chimps have psychology? Do they have a sense of self? Clearly, they do.
Yeah. Wow. That's insane. Holy
Yeah.
crap. Talk about a codependent relationship.
I mean, there's the stories of Kobe I could go on for, because
Yeah.
some of them are not as good as that one. But
Yeah.
the fact that he did that to himself was immediate evidence that self-aware, true psychology. I mean, they obviously
Mhm.
have a complex psychological aspect to them.
Oh yeah.
Viewed himself as a human, or wanted to view himself as a human, and he
Eh,
rejected, chimpanzee life, or what it looked like chimpanzees. So yeah,
wow. I
um,
wonder if it was like he was so turned off by chimpanzee life as to how it treated him, or maybe he was ostracized by them because he already was like that.
if you for connect to further the story a little bit, this one's not these part of the story is not it's not as happy or funny, but I'll share
Hmm.
them anyway.
Sure.
Kobe hated other chimps,
Hmm.
probably because of what happened to him.
Hmm.
He did apparently before my time. This is going back maybe to the early 90s. Broke out of his cage.
Mm.
And he found his way to the at the time was a chimpanzee nursery.
Oh no.
Killed every single baby in the nursery.
Oh wow.
He broke the arm of the guy who he cared about, who was trying to stop him. 'Cause chimps are so strong, they snapped a
Oh
leg
yeah. Yeah, that's
arm.
another thing about them is they're terrifying.
Yeah,
You know,
and
like that movie Nope, that came out, the Jordan Peele movie. Like I remember it has a very important message about not messing around with nature, but it is very eye-opening. And I already knew chimps were capable of that, but
yeah,
it's like, oh yeah, they totally can do that.
and he couldn't be around any other chimp but this one female chimp he was able to tolerate. Even his son, he would not be able to be next to without trying to beat up.
Wow.
Because he did have a son that was I don't know if he ever knew it was his son
Hmm.
because they were in the same like little enclosure area, but they were like separated by. We allowed him and that girl, female chimp, to
Hmm.
interact with each other, and we opened the gate so they could be around each other. Him and the other male, his son, couldn't without him trying to kill him.
Oh wow.
So yeah, he hated chimps. So for some reason he was a human all the way. Hated chimps except for this one female chimp that apparently he could chill with to an extent. He would beat her up from time to time, but for the most part he was kind of chill with her.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that's wild, crazy. So you went into teaching off of that. You're like,
Um.
let's move on to human messed up
Yeah.
psychological human problems that come with teaching. And
Yeah. I mean, there was a gap in between where I was in commission sales
oh,
because
that must have been terrible. What kind of stuff were you selling?
I was selling mattresses for a little while,
Oh, that's terrible.
furniture for a little while, lawn care for a little while, and
Wow.
then
It's so soulless doing work like that. Like it's just soul killing.
yeah, I would say I always tell this as an idea of what wealth is because the only time it's one of the few times I've ever experienced actual wealth.
Hmm.
When I was in commission sales, especially while I was selling the mattresses, for a little while I was doing huge money.
Mhm.
I mean, it was more money I've ever seen in my life. Taking, I was, if I kept doing it, I mean, it was in the high five figures. This was going back in the like 2000,
Well,
2009, 2010. I mean, it's a big amount of money for me. And I realized I was buying expensive watches. The shoes suddenly became super expensive. The clothes were all high-end clothes.
hmm
I realized the reason I was doing it, and that's when I quit, that I found that the job was so shallow. The only justification I could make for doing it was to try to show the wealth I was making doing it. But then I realized because the pursuit itself was so shallow, money became the thing. So I decided I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want to be that shallow of an individual that only was trying to show off my wealth. And I decided what is not shallow, and I decided teaching was not shallow, and I moved into that.
wow, I'm impressed just seeing examples of self-actualization on that level with anybody, like with any kind of human. Like, most people you can kind of, pseudo-diagnose people you meet in your life with that sort of thing. Like
Yeah,
I know people that I would definitely describe being that way. There's like some hole, or maybe they came from nothing and now they got to show the world that they made something of themselves over and
yeah.
over again, to the point that they don't really get to stop and just enjoy it. So the fact that you could recognize that within yourself and be like, I know where this is headed, and step away from it, that's admirable. Because
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. It was something I just figured out, and I kind of had a better sense of why people buy mansions and shit. It's like, yeah, because you're trying to justify the bullshit you're doing to earn it. So I kind of
well,
got that.
that's a lot of the issue. And I mean, obviously it's a bigger problem with economics and capitalism in the
Right.
world. But the idea that, like, when I hear these stories, it's like these massive accumulations of wealth. It's like, to what end? Like, to what?
Yep.
And like, it's not about money anymore. Like the idea that you could be a 999 millionaire, just
Yeah.
one, like a dollar short of being a billionaire is not enough for you. Like, say we
Yeah.
just say no more billionaires, and then everyone's like, whoa, and it's like everybody's got this ingrained. I say this, and I don't know how much truth is to it, but it's just what I believe is that, like, it's the American dream, but I mean it's the North American dream, is that if anybody can work hard and become a billionaire.
Yeah.
So the idea, when some politician comes along and says, well, maybe we should tax those guys a normal rate, everyone's like, well, someday I might be a billionaire and I don't want to be taxed that. So I don't want this thing. And it's like shooting yourself in the foot, to help you now in a dream scenario that's never going to happen in another world where you are a millionaire as well, or a billionaire.
Have you ever seen the show The West Wing?
A little bit. I've been
All right.
meaning to go back and watch it. I do like Aaron Sorkin quite a bit. So.
There's an episode. I can't remember the details of the episode. I can't remember which episode even sure occurs in. But the president, played by Martin Sheen, Bartlett, he said, this is a quote from it, not exact. He said, the problem with America is everyone's waiting for the day they're going to be billionaires.
Mhm.
And the way I remember that line, which is, yeah, it's probably true. We're all concerned, like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't want the government in my pocket. It's like, you don't have pockets, dude. There's nothing in your pocket. I wouldn't worry about it right now. But apparently people do concern. And at the same time, too, someone like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, which, I mean, you got to appreciate the fact that they managed to make that much money. That's, good for them. But I get the feeling like once you make that kind of money, it's not even about, what do you do with that money anymore. It's just because you got to prove now you're number one. I'm now the richest person in the world. Now I'm the third rich, and they keep track of that crap. And I think that's what becomes
It's so
that's never enough.
wild. Like the good you could do,
Yeah,
and like every time someone's like, why don't you give money somewhere? And Elon Musk is like, show me a financial plan in which that would be sustainable or that they would help these people. I'm like, it doesn't necessarily mean forever. Maybe you could just like help a bunch of people from not starving right now. Is that not enough? Like, is that not a
right.
good enough goal
There,
for you? Like,
one summer when I wasn't doing summer school, now I'm in summer school. One summer I wasn't doing summer school.
mhm,
I remember why I might have been bored or just curious. I did some basic, no, I crunched some numbers, right?
mhm,
And the numbers I crunched was how much would it cost to end homelessness in the country?
mhm,
It came out to about $50 billion a year could end homelessness in the country forever.
mhm.
Basically, and for not just giving them money, I think is to a lot of people who are homeless or mentally ill. So you need
Mhm.
to pay, so you would need social workers. You would need
Yep.
someone to human resources to give them help them get jobs. You need someone
Mhm.
probably potentially to cook for those who can't cook, things of that nature. And I did the basic math of what it would cost to hire, put everyone in buildings to live. Basic apartments that would have to be government owned, and how much it would cost to staff them to make sure the people who are there are being helped properly,
Yeah. Yeah.
so they're not ended up back on the street, so they're getting the health care that they need. It turns out about $50 billion a year does it. And you say, where does that money come from? When you think about it, we spend 1.1 trillion on the military,
Hmm.
you probably $50 billion would not even be noticed. You could just
Hmm.
take that out, plop it there, homelessness ended in the country.
Hmm.
The probably to me the
And,
biggest
and think about how much you save in healthcare.
right.
I
Exactly.
mean, yeah, like well, your system's different. We have universal healthcare, but I remember reading somewhere about that where like I think it was Obama or somebody was saying, look, I would love to do the Canadian model or something like that. He goes, but there's all these people that work now in the current model and they would all be without jobs. What do I do about that? And it's so wild to me. It's like, well, because it's this way and we don't want to go through the hassle of figuring out how to stop that. It's just going to be that way until it's untenable. It's like the coal miners. It's like they're just going to keep making coal until eventually something else comes along that's going to make it is going to put them out of a job naturally through capitalism instead of trying to like work towards ending that now. It's
Well,
it's wild.
it's capitalism. It's like, why do we not move towards green energy?
Yeah,
Well, because people make enough money now. It's like, well, yeah, but 10 years, 20 years, but they're not going to be around 10, 20 years. They don't give a shit. In
yeah.
10, 20 years. But what I realized with people, especially and my students specifically, but students in their older, is that you can only really plan for like maybe at most a year and ahead if you're an
Mm.
adult. Yeah, kids can't. Kids are about a week in advance.
Yeah,
Adults are about a year or so. Anything beyond a year is too far to worry about. So
yeah.
it's like, well, we got to do this because climate change is going to drown half the country in 50 years. Like, yeah, 50 years.
Yeah.
It's
It's like not even conceivable to some people. Like it's not,
right.
and because most of the people in the world that make the decisions to stop that would know they'll be dead by then, long before
Yeah,
then. So they're like, whatever, like that's the next generation's problem. And it's so
yeah.
short-sighted and wild to me. But
That's why I would always argue that if you want to convince people about climate change as a problem, you don't talk about the future. You talk
mm,
about the now. So
yes.
you got to figure out what can you sell them on now that's damaging their life. In other words, if you have pollutants in the air, right?
Hmm.
Those are technically carcinogens. Are you increasing the danger of cancers and other things by having these poisons in the air? That affects you now. That at least is a right now problem. I find people would react better to that than in 50 years you're going to lose the East Coast because 50 years might as well be an eternity at that point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's too nebulous and too big of an idea anyway to hold your brain to. We mean it's going to drown. I can't imagine it's going to drown, so it's probably not a problem. It's fine.
Yeah. I've never seen that happen. So why would it happen?
Right.
Yeah. It's wild. It's I was talking to someone about this today, actually, about the whole people come at you with the numbers that are like, well, they believe it's natural and it just happens. Look at this chart about, things getting warmer. And it's like, yeah, but if you look at that chart and the carbon emissions, it's like steady, 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 boom. Like
Right.
200 years ago when humans started making things, like boom. And then it's like, and it's very apparent when you look at it that way, like, the climate fluctuates, sure, but not this fast, never in history. So
Right.
there's one factor that was on the planet now that's doing shit that wasn't, and that's us.
But the
So
problem is the idea of sacrifice. What would you
yeah,
give
yeah.
to fix things? It's like, well, how about your car? You need public transport. Maybe a subway or an elevated train or something along those lines. Like, yeah, but then you're with people. You got a plan. I don't want to lose my car. Well, how about this? All the power you're using to run videos or Wi-Fi, whatever, that takes this much energy, which is this costly to the environment. Yeah, but I like my Wi-Fi. I like my, so it's like the problem is the sacrifice to make things work feels far greater in the now than the
Mm.
potential danger in the future that you may not be a part of.
That's very well put. And that's what gets me. It's like people are willing, like it's not even about people aren't willing to do anything. Like COVID was a big example of that. Like just to wear a mask or to
Yeah,
or you know what I mean, to not go have a birthday party like at in an apartment building, like just the tiniest inconvenience some people would just break them to do. They
yeah,
just couldn't do it. Like they just couldn't do it. It was the smallest sacrifice to help somebody else was too great for them. And it
well,
was
yeah. I mean, I remember the major complaint was I can't breathe in these things.
mm,
I'm like, well, when I worked with the chimps, 8 hours a day, I wore a mask.
mm,
I was a vet tech for 2 or 3 years between being a primatologist and moving into sales. Because I was, the whole working with animals thing I thought it was going to get a better job.
yeah.
I wore a mask almost the entire time. You can't breathe in the mask. It's slightly uncomfortable for a little while, but you can deal with it. But the people who are like, I can't breathe in this thing, it's like, you whiny little bitch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and fine, if it's so worse for you, don't go. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I will
this,
say the thing that I think I found most fascinating about COVID, I always will.
yeah.
This is, I think, the part of human nature I never imagined would exist, but it does. The people who wore the mask underneath the nose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
It's
never
just
understood.
just enough to show you I will do this because I have to, but fuck
Yeah,
you. I don't want, like I'm
right.
not gonna do it the whole way.
And I kind of I remember talking. I think I mentioned to one person ago. I think I was teaching during COVID. I
Mm.
remember I think one of my students was doing it, and he's like, "Well, I'm wearing the mask." I was like, "Yeah, underneath your nose." Like, "Yeah." I go, "You do know the air going into your and out of your mouth, the same air going in and out of your nose." He just kind of looked at me. He's like, "Oh, like you didn't realize the connection between your nose and your mouth."
You think air only comes or goes in, it doesn't come out? Like,
But
how do you breathe if your mouth is closed?
I thought that the most fascinating thing. I was like, how are you not noticing the problem here, people? It's not even that glaring. It doesn't take a lot of science to realize covering, leaving your nose open without the mask on is
Well,
not
people
helping the
people only
situation.
investigate as far as they need to go to give themselves plausible deniability. They're like, oh, I
Well,
didn't think that much because that allows me to do the thing I want to do.
we'll get the ridiculousness of this, right? Because I guess it was just too hard to schedule things this way.
Yeah.
So as a teacher, we had to wear a mask, and so did the kids all day long. Okay, if the kid didn't wear his mask in class, you could kick him out of the classroom.
Mhm.
Okay. However, we ate our lunches in class.
Mhm.
Means you got to take off the mask. So apparently, according to our administration, the virus knew when it was lunchtime and when it was regular time. So I told the administrators I'm not going to eat lunch with my students. I told them that it defeats the purpose of wearing my mask the other 6 hours of my day. If for our 30 minutes we all have our masks off, breathing on
Yeah,
each
yeah, you might as well just keep
other.
it off if you're staying in the
Yeah,
room. Right?
I'm going to eat somewhere else. And I'll come up, put my mask on and sit in with the student. They're like, no, that's not how we do things. It's safe to eat in class. Like then it's safe to never wear your mask. It's the same. Your virus does not know when it's lunchtime. The virus is not like, you know
The
what, guys?
virus is on lunch too, though. It's
Right.
showing out.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, well, we'll give you this 30 minutes. Tell you what, 30 minutes, you guys. We're not gonna bother anybody. We'll give you the 30 minutes of free time. But after that, I'm really gonna get you guys.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like a serial killer that's like gonna kill you, but
Right.
he's like, oh, hey, shit, it's lunchtime. So I'll
Yeah,
be
yeah.
back in half an hour. Don't go anywhere.
I
Yeah.
don't kill during prime time.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch your shows. I'll get you after.
Yeah, I'll get you. I'll get you after. Well, what grade do you like? What do you teach? Is it?
Right now I'm an eighth grade special ed teacher.
Oh, okay. It must be kind of
Yeah,
rewarding in a way, like helping people, learn.
you would totally think so.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's a level of like kids that have trouble. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm not old. I'm not so old. I don't remember what it was like to be in school. So the
Yeah.
kids that generally had trouble learning were the ones that acted out because, they were frustrated because they couldn't learn. So I imagine that's just a whole room full of those kids, which must be
Um,
tough.
it's a very challenging job. Yeah, I mean, there's good moments that you love and you feel good about yourself, and then there's the moments where kids, especially in eighth grade.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, that's when they're
it,
getting to be real assholes. That's
yeah,
like that's when they get full of fuck you and they know they can do
right.
that. Yeah.
And like I said, I think someone told me, 'cause I used to work in high school for a long time too. What they told me was the problem with eighth grade, and this is before I worked with eighth grade. This is my first year working with eighth grade. Before that was all high school. They said they are smart enough to know what upsets you, but they lack the empathy to understand that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
I was like,
That's a great way to put it.
that covers it. I mean, they're smart. They understand enough now to know I can get you this way. I can hurt you this way or that
Mhm.
way. But they don't have that part of their brain yet that says, but I shouldn't.
Yeah. And that's the part that's like I don't have any children, but that's the part of me that's like I don't know if I could handle that. Not like like if I had a kid in my house that hit that point, hit that switch and was like treating me like I was the biggest idiot they ever met, I don't think I could handle it. I would be like like I'm not an angry guy at all. Like I do not have a temper, but I would just be so frustrated. I just would have to throw them out of the house or something.
um, you,
So
you
with
gotta
it.
you gotta decompartmentalize
I
and
guess so. Don't take it personally, I guess, but it's easy to say that phrase, but it's harder to do that,
I,
you know?
I would say, another thing that I talked to someone I used to work with. She was the therapist at the school at another school I used to work with. I used to work at a school for kids with behavioral emotional problems before I became a special ed teacher. And what she said to me, and it kind of stuck with me a little bit, even though I didn't like her, the person, she was wise in this area. She said,
Mhm.
if you become a teacher, you need to find something outside teaching that makes you happy. Because teaching itself in many ways won't do that because it's the amount of stress and aggravation and mental abuse you deal with will often overcome the good moments, right?
Mm.
But you need something outside school that you feel proud of to make you want to come in the next day.
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I was like, that's not wrong. And when we talk about things like comic books and my podcast and my publicist stuff, that exists so I can do the other thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
So
saying?
is that when you started doing this sort of thing? Like, because what was
Um,
first? Was it the publicist or the podcast?
on the podcast came first. The publicist came out of a curiosity of some people I used to work with. I was on a different podcast going back. I did that for a couple of years, and I was really good at getting guests. We had some really great guests. I
Awesome.
was the public. I was I labeled myself the public relations manager, which
Yeah.
was so it sounded official when I went to get people's get the guests.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really good at it. And they said, well, if you're good at getting guests, would you be good at getting people on other shows as a publicist? And I thought about it. I was like, I don't know, maybe pay me and we'll find out. And they
Mm-hmm.
did. And apparently I'm good at it.
Awesome.
I've been doing it now for maybe 3 years. I think I've been doing it for now. And the nice thing is, is I'm successful to the point where at least I don't ever like advertise at all.
Mm-hmm.
People come to me.
Nice. That's
So
that's where you want to be.
yeah, so I don't want to be one of those people who are like tracking down campaigns, like emailing them, like, "Hey, my name is blah. Wouldn't you need a campaign?" I don't want to be that kind of.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yeah.
Person,
This is Jeffrey from Baltimore. I
right,
noticed that
right.
you have so many clicks on your website. Yeah. Oh
Right.
wow.
I don't want to be that damn person.
Yeah.
But so instead, I'm the person where people just reach out to me and go, "Hey, I've seen you do this and this. Can you help me out?"
That's
Sure.
awesome.
That's kind of how I run it. So I mean, it was good. It came out of the podcasting and getting guests, and then figuring out flipping it and be like, oh well, if I'm promoting and getting guests for this, I probably can do the reverse over here, and it's been working for me. And now, so like I said, I've been published for 3 years. I've had my own podcast for almost 3 years,
Nice.
and then I've done 5 years because of the other 2 years from the other show.
Nice.
Doing it for a while.
Wow. And the interviewing thing is interesting. Have you ever had like I find some conversations because I run mine more similarly. Like this is my format. It's more like a conversation. Like I met you at a party. Let's get to know who you are.
Right.
I do research and stuff, but it's I'd rather get to hear it through your words than me just listen to me interpret. Although sometimes have someone that I'm a big fan of or something, and maybe it goes a bit deeper because you get that too. Although I always try to go as deep just to get to know the
Right.
person. Sometimes it goes real easy, like this is great, just having a great conversation, it's flowing. Sometimes you get someone, it's like pulling teeth, and every once in a while it's rare, and I'll never admit which ones were, but if you listen and pay attention, you can probably figure it out. Where you just have to keep giving them something to say because they'll give you like a sentence and then
Well, I mean, I've had those. I mean, I had an interview 2.5 hours ago started with Thomas Jane.
Oh wow, a big fan.
Yeah, he's been he was on the show once before, but he came back to the show to talk about his new season of Troppo. Great conversation. We talked for about an hour. It was a lot of fun. And that was like a fun interview, and I enjoyed the back and forth, kind of a conversational kind of tone. And I think if you ever watch my episodes, they're closer to what we're doing here, which is more conversational, though it's slightly more them. It's more me like queuing them up and then let them go
Yeah,
on.
yeah, and I kind of like that too.
Yeah, but I've had some pretty well-known comic book writers. I'm not gonna say what their names are.
Yeah, yeah. Send them my way, please. I would love to talk to them.
Right, and I remember the conversation, and I remember I'm not gonna say what they did, or I'm gonna just dance around it. And I would ask them a question. I like to deep dive into like the creative aspect, right?
Mhm.
I'd be like, when you did this and this, were you representing this blah blah blah? He's like, no. It's like, okay. And then I was like, how about? And I was like, blah 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 blah. About this topic. He'd be like, no. I was like, okay. So what do you think about going in this direction? Not really. I mean, I write what I write. I'm like, okay, let's keep rolling. And I was like, oh my god. And
It's almost like because you're trying to fill time too. Like obviously you want it to feel. You don't want it to feel like that, but you also like want to give an engaging, like hour-long conversation. How I do roughly. So it's like, but sometimes you're just like you're looking at the clock and you're like, oh man, it's been 20 minutes, and you're like, and you're just grabbing anything you can to get them. And every once in a while, like I find it really rewarding when you talk to one person and say, like one of my best conversations is this guy named Ernie Altbacker, who is a artist or a writer for and
he did one of the DC animated
A
films.
bunch of them, yeah, a few of them, yeah. The I think the Green Lantern one most recently, but great conversation with him. But when you start, he's like, you can tell he's expecting to be a one word. He's very like very. And then I asked him some question about his dad, and we got into talking about dads and what his dad did. And then at one point he's like, "You're gonna cut all this though, aren't you?" Like, and he really opened up because he realized it's like
Yeah.
we're just chatting. And then after like we're talking for a while because his dad was like a smelter. And he goes, at the end, he goes, "You're going to cut all this smelting stuff, right?" I'm like, "No, I'm keeping all this." He goes, "What do you mean? You're talking about smelting for like 20 minutes." I'm like, "Yeah, but it was hilarious." And like, it's you. Like, it's like, this is your life. It's your family. We talk longer than the hour, but yeah, he found out I was a wrestler, and he wrote, because I also a professional wrestler. He wrote one of those WWE Scooby-Doo movies.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
and we chatted about that, and it just kind of opened up the world. But then, semi recently I had some people on. There's one guy specifically that was just like, this is what I do, and it's like, okay, and it sucks because sometimes there are people you really want to hear all of
Right.
the stories because they're so connected, but they're just not that open when it comes to information.
This one guy, another famous comic book writer, I'm not gonna say what his name is, but very well known, still very active.
Mhm.
And I interviewed him. We talked for an hour. Okay. Now, the problem is, I remember the interview,
Mhm.
and the amount of rambling was insane. I edited down because I had to cut out all the nonsense.
Mhm.
Hour to about 38 minutes. And it wasn't even because it was like inappropriate conversation, but it was sort
Mhm.
of like he would be talking about like, this is my favorite kind of, my favorite kind of food, for instance, right? It's like, okay, what's your favorite food? Well, my favorite food is lasagna. I really like lasagna, but then you'd be like, and I had a dog that lived across the street, and then there was this other person who I knew, and they would be this weird, like randomly, like going all over the place, and I was like, whew. And then I listened to the interview. I was like, okay, I cut it. I'm cutting like anything else that had nothing to do with the topic.
Yeah.
Or it would veer it off completely. And like I said, I think it ended up being 22 minutes out of an hour had to be cut out
Wow.
because it was so rambling. I'm not saying who it was, but I'm sure
That's
that
fair.
to all the interviews, they'll probably be able to piece it together. But yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of ones like that. There've been ones. This one guy who I interviewed. I'm not gonna say his name either, but he was a dick. And he was like, I asked him, and as an interviewer, and the kind of interviews I would, every once in a while I would poke him about, well, can you tell me what's coming up next for your book? What can we look forward to seeing in your next issue? The guy was like, why the fuck do I want to ruin the comic book for you? How you read the goddamn comic? Then that's how you'll find out. I was like, I think he misses the point of the question. I'm giving you a chance to like tease stuff, But he was like, what the fuck you want me to ruin the book for you? Read the damn book.
Why do movie trailers exist then?
Right. And I was just like,
Like,
okay, editing out that. I was like, you obviously
wow.
missed the point of the question.
Thankfully, I haven't met anybody that stark yet. But it also makes you wonder, like, why do an interview? Like if you obviously disdain the idea you're doing an interview right now, and
Yeah,
why even bother doing it? Like, you're doing both of us a favor if you just don't do it. Like,
yeah. I mean, the world of an interviewer is so rough. I did a couple interviews for Amazon Prime. They contacted me and
oh,
said, hey, can you interview these people
oh, cool, that's
for a
awesome.
documentary? And I was like, cool. And they said, but here's the trick: you have a 15-minute time limit.
Mm.
And then we move on to the next interview because they do I can't remember the name of
It's like,
those press junkets, and they cover all day long, and so you only get 15 minutes with them for the next person needs to
yeah,
jump in.
they just cut their face to them talking about whatever. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I'm in the press junket, and we're at about 13 and a half minutes, right? And I hit on just the right thing to talk about with this person finally after like 13 minutes, and the person goes, oh, you know what? I really would like to expand on that. Let's do that. And I was like, okay, we only have 1 minute left though. And apparently you're not allowed to say that. So they
Oh
got
God.
pissed about it. And I was like,
Oh.
well, I thought my only other option was to continue for like over 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long this conversation was going to
Mhm.
go. So I'm thinking, shut it down now or let her know, hey, let's have the conversation at a
Mhm.
later point. But yeah, they got pissed. Apparently, you're not allowed to tell the guests we're out of time.
If I'm ever approached by Amazon, I will keep that in mind. Well,
Apparently,
was there any room to do that? Like, does it if the person is staying there, it's their time that you're trying to respect, right?
it's a hard. You do want to respect the guest, but
Well, I
whoever.
guess they probably have PR people that are like in the wings that are.
Well, if you're doing a press junket, the PRP will be on the screen,
Oh, okay.
so they're on the thing, and they'll usually text out to you, 30 seconds left, 1 minute left, 2 minutes.
Hmm.
Fix this up. Hurry up, because after you, immediately they have the next interviewer. So
Right,
if
of
you
course.
run late, they run late.
Yes.
And after, if you're doing 10 in a day and each one runs 10 minutes late, the last person's like an hour and plus over their time, right?
Yeah.
It's really very
Makes
rigid
sense.
about
Makes
that.
sense. Very
But
regimented, but yeah.
yeah, but apparently there's a protocol on how you're supposed to like get out of it. Apparently I didn't choose the right one. So they got picked up.
I'm curious what that is. Is there like an interviewer school where they give you those notes? Like, where do you discover
Oh,
that? Where do you know that?
you have to apparently fail.
Yeah, well,
I
fair
mean,
enough.
I've had a few. Some of my guests. I had Lance Henderson on the show.
He seems like a
Um,
prickly guy.
oh yeah, totally was. But cool.
Well,
Um,
I do some acting, and I met Stephen McCaddy, who is
yeah,
he's from in Nova Scotia where I live. He's actually from very close to the town I grew up in
yeah,
Antigonish. And I was doing background on this Lizzie Borden TV show they were filming with Christina Ricci here. I was just
oh yeah,
like a cop in the background, and he was her dad. It gets murdered eventually. They did a TV movie, and then they turned into a show for like a season where she solves murders or something. I don't know. But anyway, at one point. I saw him and he was at the craft service table. I was standing. I was like, "Oh, hey, man, I'm a big fan. Nice to meet you." It was really cool to find out like you're from, I saw that you're from Antigonish, which is where I'm from.
yeah.
That's very cool. And he was like, "I'm actually from Goshen," and he just turned and walked away. And Goshen's like 5 minutes down the road from Antigonish. Like it's not like it's a whole other community or there's some kind of rivalry or something.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "What?" Like literally, all he had to say was, "Thank you, nice meeting you," and walk away. You know what I mean? Like it's just.
Well, yeah, it's one thing. It's like 'cause I always had like Arnold Vosloo. They were all on press junket, so they had I
Yeah,
think
of course. They're probably just
Vosloo
pissed and annoyed
had
because they
like
have to
maybe
do
10
that.
minutes. But I've gotten better at figuring out what I can ask within 10 minutes and knowing approximately how long an answer may take.
Hmm.
So I've been trying, so I know to like avoid ones that are like more open ended, so it makes it a little more specific when they're on a press junket. But yeah, it's all learning. No one's gonna ever tell you. I mean, I wish they said, oh, by the way, if this happens, make sure you do this. But they're
Yeah,
never gonna tell you that. They just assume they'll figure out. Then you got to figure out what they wanted to hear, and then it's a complicated business. Interviewing. I've gotten better over the last 5 years of doing it, but
yeah.
I've stepped into my share of problems. And I was like, oh, well, that didn't go how I thought it was going to go, or maybe they didn't expect this to be said or that to be said. And
Yeah.
I've had a couple of those experiences, but a lot more good than bad, more good than bad.
No, that's good.
Um,
It's got to be with celebrities like that too. It's got to be like they're probably either coached about what to say or they've done it so much they know what you're expecting and they just give you what to push the movie or whatever they got to push.
yeah, the ones that I hate the most are the ones that ask for the questions in advance.
Okay,
Because those are definitely going to be they call it the
I
canned
can't answer.
responses.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
practicing the answer, and I don't never enjoy those. The ones and the ones so some ones I do as well that I don't realize till the end, that I somehow stumbled into a good interview.
yeah.
Because like I was interviewing I'll say this one because I don't think it really matters. Armor Shimmerman because it's not a bad story.
Oh wow, cool. I like him too.
Yeah, he's been on the show a few times. And I interviewed him, and he's a phenomenal writer, absolutely
Yeah.
phenomenal. And we interviewed him about the book. All right,
Mhm.
and we interviewed the book for basically the entire episode, right? And at the end of the episode, he goes, "I want to thank you for the interview." I was like, "Okay, no problem." He's like, "No, no, no, no. Most people just talk to me about Star Trek. You didn't ask me anything about this.
Mhm.
I appreciate that, and that's why I gave you the time you had." I was like, "Oh," I think back in my head, I was like, "I just didn't ask because I thought I was running out of time."
Yeah. That's even better.
Right.
And I try not to shoehorn people into that sometimes when I talk to them too, because it's like, like one person that maybe was known for something, and sometimes you'll know. Like I interviewed Fabrice Sapolsky, who is co-creator of Spider-Man Noir, and he didn't really want to talk about it that much because he felt really slighted by the industry that kind of like doesn't really give him a lot of credit for it, and then went in all these other places with the Spider-Man Spider-Verse movies that didn't really have anything to do with him. So and I felt like I tried to not, we talked about it for a little bit. He gave his thing on it. We moved on to what his projects were now and what he was doing. But even just him promoting it and mentioning it a few times, I feel like I kind of annoyed him, and I apologized and I changed it. But I wasn't like the creator of Spider-Man Noir, the biggest, all over the place. But it was just enough. So like, and with creative types, they're kind of sensitive people, so you want to
Yeah.
work best as you can. And he's an awesome like writer in his own right and a really championer for comics. So I didn't want to annoy him, but obviously has his own issues with that, and it's trying to traverse that to make him happy and also do your thing. It's sometimes a little.
Well, one thing I was lucky on with Thomas Jane. I'm friends with other podcasters who some
Mhm.
of them have interviewed him before. Um, and I was talking to him about their interview, right?
Hmm.
Just to get a sense of it. He said he mentioned something at the end of the show. He didn't mention it with me, but he mentioned it with the other person. But at the end of the show, he said, "I'm so sick of death of answering a question about the Punisher.
Mm.
People keep asking me if I'm in Secret Wars. I'm tired of answering those questions.
No, he can't. Why would you ask him that? He's not going to tell
Right,
you. You think he's going to be like, "Yes, I absolutely am." Here's, yeah,
right,
yeah, totally.
and,
Keep an eye on Deadpool versus Wolverine. I'll be there.
right,
There's a
and
reason why no one knew Andrew Garfield was in Spider-Man: Far From Home for a long time,
right.
because he couldn't tell you, or No Way Home.
Right, and it's like, a lot of actors don't want to act like their height was 30 years ago.
Yeah,
You know what
exactly.
I'm
Yeah,
saying?
exactly.
So I knew about that. So when I interviewed him today, I was not going to ask him about the Punisher. Though in my back of my brain, I'm like, so Punisher, like I don't want, because if nothing else, that's a good short that you could release out there, and people would view it for the empty calories I would get them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm glad I didn't. I
Mm.
found that someone told me shut up, don't ask those questions. Because the interview ended with, a much more positive, hey, thank you for having your question, blah, blah, blah. Because I didn't ask the question.
Yeah, that's cool.
And sometimes it
Well,
helps
I've
to
heard him in
know.
other podcasts, and he's like he has a lot of knowledge of film history. Like,
Yep.
and I listened to this one called the movies that made me, and he's talking about all like it's Joe Dante, the writer and or the director and the writer of Josh Olson, who wrote History of Violence, the script for
Yeah.
that. And they do this podcast together, they interview other people, and they mostly just talk about it could be just the 10 movies you love most, or the 10 your 10 favorite needle drops, like in a movie, or your 10 favorite car chases, or, depending on the person. But Jane had like a deep knowledge of like old Hollywood, and a lot like
Yeah.
he has a real reverence for that. Which was really cool. Like Ron Perlman was kind of like that too. So, it's neat. That's like these sort of perceived Hollywood tough guys that are actually know a lot about the industry and have a real passion for film, not just
Man,
as an
Ron
actor.
Perlman would be a dream interview. If I could get that one to happen. That's one of those interviews. Yeah, there's a few interviews I would always I dream about, like,
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Just like in my head, like,
Your holy grail.
yeah,
Yeah.
like those fake interviews you do in your. I don't know, because as an interview, do you ever do the fake interviews in your head? Like, if I ever spoke to them, these are the questions I'm asking the guy. Never like play it out in your head.
Yeah.
Neil
Never
Gaiman's one
never
of
works out the way it does in your head.
no. Neil Gaiman was one of them. But
Yeah.
Ron Perlman would be somewhere in that era where I would love to be like, give me 10 minutes with Ron Perlman. Let me ask him.
Oh, I'm sure that's accessible. You could achieve that goal. I'm sure Perlman's probably sick
So,
of talking about Hellboy 3.
oh yeah. I mean,
Especially after watching the trailer for the new one coming out. I'm like, oh God, why don't I have a Hellboy 3 instead of what looks like a fan film?
that one, yeah.
Yeah, the Crooked
I, I, I
Man.
I got to view someone from the movie. The
Oh,
guy who
really?
plays Jeffrey Butler from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He's in the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I got to interview him. He
Oh, that's
played,
cool.
I think, the blind reverend or something along those lines. So I got to talk to him about Hellboy. That was kind of fun. I actually got to interview him months prior to the trailer coming out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, I got a little bit of little Easter eggs in there.
I'm sure he's sick of asking Fresh Prince of Bel-Air questions.
He did. I got two in there. I got him to answer two. But I focus on the Hellboy stuff.
Oh, of course. Yeah. You're right.
Um,
You're right about that. And I don't think people understand that, because sometimes you'll talk to people and they'll be like, when you ask someone this or when you ask that, it's like, because I don't want the guy to feel like, he peaked 30 years ago, like he
right.
did that one comic. And it's like, all I want to do is talk about that one comic, when he's doing all these new projects. And it's like, well, what would be like in the comics world, I have my holy grail. So that's mostly who gravitates towards this. Your world's a bit bigger than mine. With some of the folks you get to chat with, but Jim Starling is kind of my holy grail,
Oh,
and
he's fantastic.
I would love to. It would be a dream, and Mark Bagley too. But those two are like, I had Mark Russell on the show, and I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah,
And a friend of mine kind of teased me because he's like, for the interview, there was just one moment where I could see your fanboy slip through. Like, instead of just he goes where you're like, he said he reminded me of that Chris Farley sketch in SNL where he was like, he's in the audience asking questions, and it's a
yeah.
monologue and the guy's like, I don't know who it was, might have been Brad Pitt or something, and then he's standing there, he's like, yeah, a question, and then he's just like, remember when you were in that movie and you did that really cool action thing? And he's like, yeah, and he's like, that was cool, and I'm just saying, it's not a question, it's just So
Yeah.
he said there was one moment where I saw that slip in, but he said you did pretty good because you didn't overly get too wrapped up in it, but
I would say I did get to interview Starlin. I've been able to interview Russell.
oh wow.
My Hall of Fame of like ones I want to get to is Neil Gaiman's number one.
Hmm.
That guy
I feel like he's very accessible if you can get to him. Like he seems like
I,
a very cool guy.
I've gotten him to respond no multiple times.
Oh, that's nice. At least he responded.
So we made contact, but not in the way you would want him to. He said no multiple times, but he's one that like I could almost like retire after that interview. Be like, you know what, I reached my peak, I'm done. Tom McFarlane, though I've had him on the show when I did the other show, I didn't get to interview him. I didn't own the show at that
Oh, I
time.
see.
The public, so I got Tom McFarlane to come on the show, but I didn't get to interview him. They look really
Uh,
good.
yeah, that would be amazing.
So that's one of the ones I would love to have on the show.
I had Eric Larson on, and that was kind of a dream come true as well. So that
I
was,
had him on when I was on the other show. I tried to get back on my new one. He never said yes to that, so that kind of
you know,
sucks.
it's funny. He may still. I feel like I messaged him, and then he answered me like 5 months later. So maybe it
Yeah.
might still come. So you never know.
I mean, there's a few out there that I'd be so happy to get. There was I would love to get David Michelini on the show,
Mm.
Michelini, but apparently he doesn't do interviews anymore. But I'd be
Really? Oh, that sucks. I would love to chat with him
yeah,
too.
he
He was
responded.
such a part of my life growing up. Like I'm 39, almost 39. I'll be 39 in like a month. And the this like he was everything in Spider-Man comics growing up.
Oh,
Sal or Buscema, I would
oh
love to
yeah,
chat
yeah,
with
yeah.
too. I
I
saw you had James DeMatteis, and I'd like to chat with him, but I couldn't. I don't have. I'm looking for his contact info, but I couldn't find it. So he seems like a really cool guy too.
I'll see if I can.
Ah, cool. This is not my intention. Was just to like poach guests, but
No, no worries.
it is
But
nice to have a network amongst other people doing this. It's nice.
but yeah, no, he's really cool. He's been on the show twice.
Oh, nice, awesome.
Yeah, like I said, my David Michelini, I got him to respond, and he
Hmm.
just said, I've retired from interviews. I don't do them anymore. I don't want to do them anymore. I appreciate you asking, but it's not
Fair
gonna.
enough. I mean, I can respect that.
Yeah, and I think I threw one more message when he came out with the new book, like, hey, you do have a new book though. You're interested? He was just ignoring me at that point. He's just like, shut up, idiot.
Yeah.
What else was I
You
gonna
got
say?
your answer. Leave me alone.
Right, like, you fucking idiot. I already answered your question. I would love to interview Jeff Johns. Would be a great interview to have one of these days because his Green Lantern run was phenomenal. I'd love to talk to him about that. But
Oh yeah, no, it was and all everything he touched was like JSA and all that was
yeah.
fantastic.
I mean,
I feel like he's probably because there's some stuff going on with like all the Zack Snyder stuff and the guy that played Cyborg. So I think he'd probably be a little hesitant to do too many interviews. But
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
well, I mean, I guess maybe you never know.
I,
Maybe none of
I,
that matters. It seems to have gone away. So
well, at the same time, I've interviewed enough of the people who I always wanted interviewed that I can feel pretty good about the whole thing. Like I
yeah,
had Dan Sakai on the show for did Usagi Yojimbo.
I'd love to chat with him. I met him in real life. I got him. I had some indie comics I made years ago.
He is
Yeah,
one of the nicest, most tolerant people I've ever met in my life.
yeah.
I sorry to swear,
No,
but
no, you can swear on this. You can
all right,
swear.
I fucked up every single character name in every book he has written that I asked questions on, and he'd just be like, quietly, like, let's pronounce this.
Uh,
And you can still see it in his eyes, like, idiot. But he was gracious about it. He's like,
nice.
the name is this. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, every single name, wrong, wrong, wrong. And he never said, listen, dumbass, listen to the note interview, do the research on how to pronounce the name, then come back, then I'll come back. He just was graciously was just like, or he would repeat it back. He would answer the question like Joe. Let's the character name was Joe. Let's say I got the name
Yeah.
Joe. He'd be like, well, the character Ja.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, the good hint. Thank you for letting me know
Yes,
quietly
yeah.
that you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But
At least he's gracious about it.
right, he's a good guy.
I met him and Sergio Aragonés at a con. I gave them both my comic and they told me to come back the next day. And I did. And they had read it and gave me a bunch of notes, which was very sweet. Like they didn't have to take their time to
Yeah,
do that. And I was very impressed. So that was a long time ago now, but they were both very, very cool.
it's nice when you meet one that is as good as you wanted them to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I met a
thankfully in
few.
comics, it's fairly common, I find.
I find there's been a few that I've been very disappointed by.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I must say, they're comic people are a pleasure to talk with usually. Especially if you can hit the right note with them and get them talking about the thing you want to talk about. There's so many of them that are just absolutely fascinating. I mean, same with most actors. A lot of actors are a lot of fun too.
Mhm.
There's only been a handful that after interviewing, I thought to myself, oh God, what I'm saying? Like, oh man, I gotta release this. I gotta release this fucking thing now. So bad. But for the most part, they're fun and they're. I will say I've enjoyed maybe 9% of every interview I've ever done.
Yeah.
Has been a pleasure.
Yeah,
Some
I'd
not.
say I'm up Probably in the 90s. It'd have to be 90s. There's very few, and even the ones that weren't great weren't atrocious. I listened to enough interview podcasts where like Mark Maron has like Gallagher like scream at him for 10 minutes and then storm out of the room or something. And I'm like, well, at least I haven't had anything like that happen yet.
Well, I mean, it's shocking because now I do publicist work as well.
Yes, of
I get
course.
to be here at the other side of the podcast.
Yeah, I guess you're on both. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's wild too.
and I've heard enough bad ones that really I'm like, what are you doing?
Hmm.
Like I have my own indie books I write as well. So I've been
I
on as a
was
guest
going to
as
ask you
well.
about
So
that next. So yeah.
yeah, so I've been in all three categories. I've been the interviewer, the guy connecting the interview, and the guy on the show. So I've been in
Mhm.
all three. And some of the ones I've bumped to are so bad that it's almost heartbreaking how bad
Mm.
they're. The ones that are like, this one guy, I'm not gonna say his name. He's like, I'm on his show, and he's like, so what's your favorite food? I was like, it's this. He goes, okay.
Oh God.
Do you like to drive? Yeah, driving is fine. I enjoy driving. So, do you go to the park at all? There's parks near me. I go in the parks. He goes, yep, yep. Okay, that's interesting. And I'm just like, dude, one, I'm not promoting the park. But two, maybe you should have looked a little bit into what I do so you
Yeah.
get direct questions. And I'm just like, at what point did you think this is not even a functional show anymore?
Well,
I don't feel those people who are like, or they'll have like the list of 5 questions they ask or 10 questions they
was
ask.
this like a really young guy?
Oh, this guy is on the older side.
Oh wow, okay. I would have thought maybe it's a generational thing because like, and not to be like my generation, this generation, because I really
Yeah.
hate that stuff. But when someone's like, maybe it's like this is like what interviews are of the new generation because the attention spans are so short. But it's what what do you like? Do you like cheese? Yes. Okay. Cool. Cheese is
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's some interviews out there, and I've seen them too, that they'll do 10 questions, right?
Yeah.
I have 10 questions I ask my guests. And it's like, what's the name of your book? You say the name of your books. When the book comes out, say the name of the book. What do you like about the book? This. Okay, how about, and then they just like, it's just like, they don't even like respond. They just hit two with the next question. It's like, so, what's the name of your main character? You give the name character. They just move on to the next question. I'm just like,
What's the point?
what was the point of having me on? I mean, you probably could just go online and just, it's a one
Yeah.
conversation back and forth.
Well,
You ask a question, you get an answer, you expand upon your question, try to get a little more out. I mean,
yeah.
that's how the conversations work. But the ones that just some that are just really bad, they're just like bam, bam, bam. I'm just like, why do you have a show? Why do this? That's how you do it.
Yeah, well, that's it. And well, I mean, that's anybody, I mean, we're both examples of this, I guess, that anybody can do this. You're not saying that like, we're examples of the bad ones, hopefully not, but the idea that like, if you have a mild interest in this world, then you can, and you want to go out there, but not everyone's necessarily attuned to it, but everybody, I guess, take their shot. Hopefully it weeds itself out eventually, but
Yeah,
not always, it can go on for a
it,
long time.
I mean, it'd be nice if we did it's some of those guys we did, but it's sort of like like for me, I have guests that are indie, totally indie
Mhm.
level, and then I have
Yep.
guests who are known celebrities, right? I
Yep.
mean, I have the full range.
Yeah.
My goal is to make sure that when someone watches my show, they can't tell the difference in my interview
Yeah.
method on whether or not the person is a nobody or a huge celebrity, right?
Yes.
Because everyone should seem equally important while I talk to them.
Yeah. 100%.
They should have my full energy, my full interest, even if my brain, because sometimes I do them as favors, right? My brain, I'm just like, oh, this is, I can't believe I gotta do this fucking interview today. I don't want to do it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not worth the time. I know how many views we'll get, stuff like that. But I hope no one ever watches my show and can tell the difference. Like,
Yeah.
if there's ever an episode where you're like, yeah, he phoned that one in. I failed horribly.
Yeah.
And I think if everyone has something, because everyone has a story, everyone has something worth saying.
Hmm.
I don't see how you can be an interviewer and not at least explore it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a disservice to your client too if you feel like they're a lesser interview, and you treat them as
Right.
such. Like that's horrible. Nobody lets feel that way, and.
And,
Eh.
and I think I think there's a few that I've seen. I've been like, that guy didn't give a fuck.
And often it's the other way. It's just like you can tell they just want to get through it, right? But
Yeah,
but creative types generally like to talk about their work. Although sometimes it's interesting. You meet quite a rush of people, and a lot of conflicting personalities. So it's very interesting in that regard. We had a guy on I do another podcast with a friend. I guess he'd be my public relations guy. Davin, who reached out to you, and we talk about the X-Men show from the '90s, and we've had folks on that have some really interesting stories, and there's some guys that tell you stories, and you're just like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't buy this, like there's one guy specifically, I won't name a name, but like he had so many, like, and then this guy, I met this celebrity and this celebrity told me I was the best person ever. And then this celebrity told me that, and I hung out at this guy's house and then we're best friends and I almost won an Oscar. And you're just like, like,
Well, yeah, there's interviews that I did. I'll say their names because I technically did a short where I combined them so you can see the difference.
okay.
You know the Death of Superman, right?
Oh yeah. Mike Carlin, I had him on the show too.
Yeah, I had Mike Carlin on the show, then I had Louis Simonson on the show, then I had Jerry Orton on
oh,
the show.
wow. Awesome.
And I asked them sort of the same question to the point which was, how did the idea of killing Superman come about? And all three shared a different answer. I
Really?
thought
That's
that was
awesome. That's
fucking
wild.
amazing. Because I think Carlin blamed.
He told me too. That was the artist, or the room where everyone sits around
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. And,
yeah.
and Carlin said it's Jerry Ordway. Louis Simonson, I think, said Jurgens and Ordway. And Ordway said it definitely wasn't me. So I thought it was like, to me, and I thought to myself, and I put them all, I made a short where they all kind of go over the same part. And it was fascinating hearing these three people who I think were telling the truth 100%, but the memories of it were just so different. And I thought
That's awesome.
that's kind of fun. Like I'm not, so part of me is wondering like which one was the truth, but they're all probably a version of the truth, just
Yeah.
memories that are 30 years too old.
It's like Rashomon. It's like
Yeah,
it's like the Rashomon effect. Like it's just memory is, not the same for everyone. Like
right.
I've heard friends tell stories that I was at and I was like, I don't remember it that way. But someone once described memory as like a story you constantly tell yourself over and over again. And it's
Yeah.
kind of true, and things can get in mixed in there and change the story drastically, man. That's wild.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That's
that's
really cool and funny.
that's the fun of memory, right?
Yeah.
Over a certain amount of time, it becomes the one that you want.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And some people that aren't self-aware enough or always want to give off a certain air or be seen a certain way, that
Yeah.
it always tends to lean in all their stories lean in a way where it's like, look how great I am.
Oh
There's
yeah.
never a story where I fell face down in mockery, my ass fell out or something and everybody made fun of me. Like it's never that sort of story. And if it is, at the end it's like some big story where everybody loves you again. And so it's
Yeah, I mean, I've heard enough people who are grandiose,
yeah,
right?
yeah, grandiose is a good word to
Uh,
put it.
yeah,
Storytellers.
I changed the world. It's like, did you? Did
Sure,
you?
maybe your world.
Well, the ones I are kind of interesting too. I interview a lot of guests, and the ones that are interested are the ones where I've seen what they've done
Mm,
and didn't like it.
mm,
You listen to them tell about how wonderful it is,
hmm hmm
and you're like, huh, it's not how it looked when I watched. You can't say, it, but you're like, that's not how it looked when I watched it. But you got to play along and be like, yeah, 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 that's a great performance. I love the movie. I love how you did, and think to yourself, it was such crap,
I
And
had a friend of mine
yeah,
on the show. I had Joe Russo, who is
yeah,
the co-creator of Night of the Living Dead.
okay,
Like he wrote the script with George Romero, and great conversation. Interesting guy. He's an older gentleman. Probably a little bitter about how much George Romero was, given all the credit for it and had this huge career beyond it, and his didn't really kind of go the same direction. But he was here doing a signing in Nova Scotia at this midnight or this late night screening of Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something. He was there on behalf of some other store, and he was selling scripts and other stuff with his signature. But he was talking about. My friend went up to him, and like we're both big Night of the Living Dead fans. My friend went with like his Night of the Living Dead stuff he could sign, and he goes, my friend just unsolicited says something about the. He said, "Oh man, that like Night of the Living Dead, the remaster they did where they added new scenes, like that was, and the music was really bad. That was so horrible." And then there was like a long pause, and he's like, "Yeah, I did that." And then I was just like, oh, I was sitting beside him, and I was like, oh
oh,
no,
no, you gotta walk away after that point.
yeah, no,
Well,
it was
that point.
well, he was pretty honest about it. He said, like, well, they gave me a bunch of money to do that, and I used that money to get to remaster the original Night of the Living Dead so that they could release that on like Criterion or something else. So it's like, there's a story behind it. It's not necessarily as cut and dry as we made all this just for whatever, but the money they got from it gave them the means to preserve the original one in the way they wanted to do it. So that's
Well,
cool. It just sucks that,
I mean, I'm sure I've stuck my foot in my mouth.
oh yeah, you got to keep careful.
Times, when you said something, you're just like, but no, that I'm trying to think if I've ever dealt with any of my guests said something that he's like, oh yeah, that was I can't remember. I know
It's only been a couple times I've gotten an email after that said like, "Could you cut this part out or something?" And it's like, all right,
I've had
it's
I had this one guest. I'm not gonna say his name. He knows who
sure.
the hell he is.
He knows who he is. He
Um,
knows what he did.
okay, so I had a publicist, right? And I
Mhm.
wanted to interview the you know their client, right? Which is
Yep.
awesome to do. And I made the mistake to make the final sell and getting the guest, right?
Mhm.
And I said, I will edit till he's satisfied.
Okay. Oh, that's a big promise.
Yeah, it was the interview itself was about 45 minutes long.
Okay.
And I did the interview and I felt confident with it. This was a good
Yep.
interview. I don't see any issues with this. I sent it to him. This is the raw look of the interview, right?
Mhm.
Uncut. This is what it's gonna look like. He sent me, and they came back with his edits. You know, 2 seconds clip here, kind of 5 seconds here, 4 seconds there. So
Mhm.
I did the cut. I was like, you know what? His show, he can do what he wants with it, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I made the cuts. I sent it back to him, saying, "There it is. The cuts are made." Right? I'm a man of my word.
Yep.
Comes back and said, "Well, I need these cut too now." The
Oh no.
5 edits, 5, 6 edits. You need 2 seconds here, cut out 5 seconds there.
Wow.
And I said, "Okay." I made the edits. I sent it back to him. Came back with me more edits.
Oh my
Think
God.
about it, and the edits were like this. When you're doing during the interview, I swiveled my chair a couple of times. Can you cut the swiveling of my chair, please? I don't just,
Wow.
but because I'm talking, can you put like an image or like put it focus on you at that moment? So like do like a zoom in on
So you
yourself.
have a director is what's happened here.
Right, and he's cutting and like these minor. He goes, "Oh, if you notice, I made like a weird like eye twitch. You need to cut that out, but you need to like can't cut out what I'm saying. So you need to zoom in on your focus on yourself. So I don't have so you don't see me." And it went on 6 different edits.
Oh wow.
The seventh edit, I wrote on it, final edit. And I sent it to him. He never said anything after that. I was like, I was trying to be very clear. I was courteous the first
Yeah.
6 times. This is it. But yeah,
Wow.
the whole edit process probably took me, see, 6 different edits.
How long was it at the end of it? From 45 to what, like
Um,
22 minutes?
no, 40 minutes. He's
No.
cutting seconds at a
Oh,
time.
so it was just tiny. Wow.
2, 3 seconds at a time.
Jesus.
I was
So what he watched it numerous times over and over again and picked up these tiny minute
yeah,
details
it's
that
like if
bother.
you notice, I wasn't quite looking at the camera in this from second 443 to 445. I wasn't looking at the camera. Can you cut that for me? I don't like how that looked. The lighting was weird at the 30-minute and 46-second mark. Can you cut out the 3 seconds after that? It was like this like minute changes that changes nothing in the interview.
Yeah.
He just kept sending him back to me and back.
Wow, what a
Back to
deeply
me.
neurotic person.
And I finally, that's what I got after the 6th time. I was like, final edit. I'm not touching a goddamn thing. It's
Yeah.
as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I never ever try to never say that ever again. I'll cut to your
Yeah.
satisfaction
Yeah.
because that apparently is a big mistake. This one guy interviewed me. I say, well, I'm gonna say, should I say his name?
Okay, no worries.
He's an actor. And we had this great interview, right? And I posted it and started racking up my views, right? Racking up my views. And he sends me an email. He goes, "Can you edit it for me?" And I was like, "Well, it's already out there. It's getting views." He's like, "Yeah, I know. Can you take it down and edit it?" I was
Oh
like,
no.
"All right. Why?" He's like, "Well, here's the thing. Because the guy lived in an African nation once
Yeah.
upon. He moved somewhere else, but he came out from this Africa. He comes business home back home.
Yep.
Right? He goes, "Well, here's the thing. I visit that country every so often, right? And I say some pretty mean things about the dictatorial leader of that country.
No. Oh, cool.
I'm pretty sure if he sees it, I'm gonna be dead the next time I go.
That's a fair reason.
Can you cut it?" So at that point, I said yes. I
Yeah.
said, "Yes, I'll cut it because I don't want to kill my guest." So that'd be a great. Yeah.
You get a lot of clicks for that one. Yeah. Yeah.
The clicks would be nice because it's the famous episode that got this actor a shot.
Yeah.
However, he still feel very bad about it. So I cut it.
It also would make other actors perhaps less interested in doing your show.
Right.
So yeah.
So from that point forward, though, I start every before I do my interview, I say 3 things. Right. First off is that I do edit. But the first thing I would say is this is now I say forever from now on. I will give you 48 hours to get back to me.
Yep.
After 48 hours, it's in the show.
Yep.
So 48 hours, okay, what you want me to cut. After 48 hours, whatever you don't say is officially gonna. I'm not making more further edits.
Yeah.
Because of that moment, which was like, I'm not losing views for anything anymore. Once
Yeah.
you're not getting views, it's just how it goes. I will tell you right up front. I'll give you 2 days to make a decision.
Yeah.
days. And I've had some people. This one, this one I don't mind sharing because I don't think she would care. Peggy Lou from Venom movies, right?
Hmm.
I had an interview with her just recently about Venom 3. Venom 3 doesn't come out till October, right?
Hmm.
And during the conversation, she dropped some serious spoilers
Oh yeah. Okay.
about the movie. And she told me, at the end, she's like, hey, can you cut any mention of this, this, and this? And I gladly did it, right?
Yeah, of
Because
course. You don't get her in trouble. Yeah.
you got that, and it's just click, click, click. But it's the ones that are like days later, week later, after once it gets posted, to come back to me and be like, can you cut? I'm like, no, never again. I'm not doing that. Just once,
Yeah. No.
you know.
Yeah.
But
Crazy. What about the comic work you've been doing? Like, what is the? How's that been? Like, kind of being interviewing people about work and doing your own indie comics on top of it.
um, it's interesting. I mean, it's expensive. Um, it's weird. On the one hand, I mean, I love doing the writing. At some point, though, it's weird. It's like this little bit of bitterness when you realize some of the people you're talking to are much more successful at it than you are.
Oh yeah.
The little bitterness where you're kind of like, he's like, the person's like, I made my Kickstarter's made $10,000, and you're like, I made only, say my only
Yeah.
this. That's lovely. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
But part of your brain's like, well, if he can do it, you can do it. Just keep going.
Yeah.
It's
That's the
tough. I
right
mean,
mindset to try to hold on to, right? Like,
yeah,
maybe learn something from them and use it yourself.
my most recent Kickstarter was the end of All Terminus, right? I did the
Mhm.
first issue and I did Kickstarter the second issue.
Mhm.
The second issue did not do anywhere as well as the first issue did.
They
Um,
historically never do with those, unfortunately. I don't
right.
think.
How much money it made was, I mean, it made my goal, but like barely made it. The first one did okay. It
Hmm.
made a stretch goal. This first one like barely made the goal. And I got to write the third issue.
Hmm.
There's part of my brain going, do I go forward with the third issue and test it again and try to make the third issue? Or do I say the interest isn't there and move on to a new project? As a writer and a creator, I think that's the hardest decision you would make.
Yeah.
They're both your babies. They're both stories that you feel in your heart are stories people should read
Mm.
because they're good. As all the writers have all full of self-doubt, we're full of anxiety. We're basically nervous wrecks all our entire
Oh
lives.
yeah, of course.
And imposter syndrome and all that. It's all that exists in writer's
Well, you
life.
have to be a deeply empathetic person to be a writer in general, like because
Right.
you got to be able, well, a good writer. So you need to be able to put yourself in the headspace of people that aren't that have experiences beyond your own, so you can write about them. So
Right.
when you have that sort of mindset, it leaves you wide open for other things too, right? Like it's not just when you're that empathetic and you feel that strongly about other people, it's very easy to have those emotions take over and then sort of define yourself by others sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a little bit enough of an ego there where I think, these are stories that are good. I think people should read them.
Mhm.
They're unique, they're interesting, they have, what I'm saying? But the part of your brain's going, however, if they're not making money, should I continue?
Mhm.
And that's where I am right now with Terminus number 30. Part of my brain's going, keep going with the story. If keep moving forward, keep figuring out how to make this work. Part of my brain's going, try something else. So that's kind of where I am right now. Where my part of my brain's going, go for it. The other part of my is going, there's got to be other story that people want more than that one.
Mm.
I think as a writer, that's what the biggest struggle I have right now in my entire career is making that decision.
Mm.
When do you call quits if it's not working, and when do you just say fuck it, I'm plowing forward?
Mm.
And that's kind of where I think I am on that one. So it's creative. It's tough, especially because um, being a writer, not the artist, is expensive.
Mm.
All the risk in creating comic books is on the writer because it's your
Mm.
money.
Yeah.
The artist can make the money. They get paid and they can walk away. If the issue never gets a second issue, you still got paid for the first one. You made profit, right? It's on the writer. And Kickstarter, especially during a time right now where there's inflation and everything else, money is tight for everybody.
Mm.
So it's a hard time to try to make a comic book, which is, it's an impulse buy, really. You know what I'm saying? It's not like something like you can't, you don't. It's not like breathing or eating or having a shelter. It's a book that you can buy
Yeah.
or not buy and survive just fine. So it's indie comics is a tough industry. That's why you hire
Oh yeah.
folks. That's why you
Yeah.
hire other people to try to help you out. It's a really, really tough business, and you gotta be able to take shots like boxing. You gotta be able to sit there in the ring, get your ass kicked, get knocked out, and then determine to get back into that ring and just to get knocked out again. I mean,
Yeah.
when you go to, I don't think there's anyone, a boxer, who doesn't go in the ring thinking, I'm not going to get punched today. You're going to get punched. It's going to, more than once. It's going to hurt. You're going to get, plus your body are going to be
Well,
broken.
manage your expectations, right? I mean, that's
Right.
that's probably sound advice in almost any place, in almost any industry. But But I mean, that's true. You're right, because it's like this weird juxtaposition of trying to do that, manage your expectations, but also keep your ego in check. But also, you need to have that ego and that drive to want to do it in the first place, or at least to go through the effort to do it. To say this story needs to be told, people need to read the story. So yeah, it's a weird. It is an interesting kind of collaboration of the human condition, especially the artistic human condition, I guess.
I would say respect anyone who's willing to put something out there like that and to take the shots.
Yeah.
Every Kickstarter, whether or not you back it or not, there's a ballsy ass person who had the passion and the guts to put it out there. Whether or not you want to back it or not, whether or not you think it's a stupid idea or not, you got to respect the person who had the balls to do it, I think.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good way to approach it. And that's when you talked earlier about like talking to someone whose work or project you might not necessarily have liked. That's a good way to broach it that way, because sometimes you're like, well, you like so many artistic endeavors don't get finished. So you did something. You actually like there's a special place in my heart for the Tommy Wiseaus or the Ed Woods of the world that, are passionate about making something, but just suck at it. And, there's something so human about wanting to do something so badly and being so bad at it, but still doing it. That's, it's like the underdog story. You can't help but kind of cheer for them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I agree 100%.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, what do you have coming up that you want to talk about? Don't curse at me and tell me to go read the book.
Fucking book. My God, man. I can't do this all for you. No, just kidding.
I was waiting for that. I'm like, he's gonna curse at me. Read the fucking book.
What's next is my podcast is approaching its third year.
Oh, awesome.
On November 1st, I have some good episodes. I have Thomas Jane going to be released soon. Dan DiDio is going to be released soon.
Oh, awesome. Wow, you got lots of great people.
Yeah, I'm going to have David Hewlett on for like the 5th time from Stargate. He'll be coming up next to release soon. Christopher Cantwell is coming out soon. A bunch of other. I just released today Gary Anthony Williams, who's the voice in Batman Cape Crusader. So Traversing the Stars podcast, check it out. The End of Alterminus, number 2 will be released in September. Edward who backed it. Keep in mind what's going to come next for my next comic book, whether or not it's Terminus 3 or another book that I'm working on. I would say post-this work is alive and well. I should have about 3 or 4 more clients in August. So keep in mind for me posting to every Facebook group you're in to
sure, absolutely,
shit out of them.
For the guests listening, one of the previous or not previous, I guess a couple episodes ago, and Mr. Coke was one of your clients. Yeah. So great conversation, really fun guy. I like talking to him.
Yeah, so I got a lot of irons in the fire here and there, and keep looking. And if you hear my name, back and support me and give me your money, I guess. I don't know. Whatever.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, man. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. And keep me in touch. I'm happy to send anybody I got your way, and vice versa. If you have anybody that you're trying to get out there, I'm always happy to talk to people, creative types, about anything really. So,
well, great, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. Have a good day.
Yep.
There it is, my conversation with Jeff Haas. Like I said, very inside baseball, very much us chatting about the realities of doing a show like this. And it was nice to talk to someone else who's fought the same fight. Whenever you're in some kind of an industry, whether it be work or a hobby, when you meet someone that also shares that work or that hobby, you usually have a lot to talk about, and that was certainly the case with Jeff. So big thanks to him for being free with his time and coming on the show. And big thanks to you once again for tuning in. I said the show would not be a show without people listening to it. So please do all you can to continue, I'm not saying go nuts, but just keep listening and spread the word. That helps a lot. If you dig the show, if you enjoyed it, if you like my particular brand of interview, tell someone about it. Share the link, put it on your socials, get it out there. Because ears, I need to fill some ears. That's what I'm trying to do here. So fill a whole lot of ears, and you can take that in any context you want. That being said, be sure to like and subscribe, share all that good stuff, and tune in next week to another fun-filled episode. But during that time period, try to enjoy some sun. And if you were, I'm not sure part of the world that you were in, but whatever one it is, hopefully you can find a way to carve out some time to have some fun and enjoy it a little bit, because life's meant to be lived. It's meant to be dance through. It's meant to be fun. And, hopefully I can help with this show, give you a little bit of that. But, hopefully you can cause some of that yourself. So get out there, have some fun. And a great ingredient to have fun is comics. So go read some of those too. Catch you next time. The Graphic Histories Podcast is a proud partner of the United Federation of Podcasts.